Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chair French, and I'm convening the special business meeting of the Kansas Corporation Commission this afternoon, joined by my colleagues, Commissioner Duffy and Commissioner Keene. On today's agenda, we have just one item, and that is in docket number 21 EKME 320 TAR, and we are considering a proposed final order in that docket. Our presenter on this item is Mr. Brian Fedotin. Brian, if you're ready, I'll let you take it away as far as your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. On February 24th, Evergy Kansas Metro and Evergy Kansas Central filed an application for approval of their transportation electrification program, which includes rebate programs, rates for charging station or services, and associated educational programs and administrative budgets, and authorization to use a deferral accounting mechanism to track program costs associated with the portfolio. Evergy also sought a finding from the commission that a limited and targeted expansion of its clean charge network, or CCN, is prudent from a decisional perspective. Evergy estimates the net present value of customer benefits in its Kansas Metro territory through 2040 would be $72.3 million, and the estimated benefit in the Kansas Central territory through 2040 would be $46.9 million. On July 29th, Evergy staff and CURB filed a motion to approve a non-unanimous partial settlement agreement. The settlement provides $10 million for the commercial EV charger rebate program. Of that $10 million, 1.6 would target underserved areas. There would also be an expedited process for Evergy to increase the budget for that program to $15.4 million. In terms of residential rebates under the settlement, Evergy would be able to offer customers who install a 240 volt outlet a $500 rebate if they enroll in time of use rates, or a $250 rebate if they do not enroll in time of use rebates. Those programs would be slated to begin February 1st of 2022 and continue for 5 years till January 31st, 2027. ChargePoint proposes modifications to Evergy's proposed residential rebate program to allow residential customers to either hardwire their home chargers or install any MA outlets if the customer prefers, to require Evergy to develop a list of qualified chargers for the residential rate program, as well as modifying the CCR to remove requirements that site hosts share charger utilization data with Evergy, and that customers agree to participate in demand response events. On August 6th, AFPM, which is a group of petroleum manufacturers, filed their opposition to the settlement, claiming that the application is not necessary for Evergy to provide reasonable, efficient, and sufficient service, and unlawfully allows one class of Evergy customers to bear the cost of other set of customers, unlawfully gives Evergy a competitive advantage over the fuel industry, and violates public policy because it is not the utility's role to stimulate demand for electric service. The commission held an evidentiary hearing on September 20th and 21st. There's a lot more detail in the order, but in the interest of time, I'm skipping ahead, and people that are interested can read the order eventually online, assuming it gets approved. Walking through the settlement agreement, since it's non-unanimous, the commission applies a 5-factor test to determine whether to approve the settlement. Those factors are: 1, whether each party had an opportunity to be heard on the reasons for opposing the settlement; 2, whether the settlement is supported by substantial competent evidence in the record as a whole. 3, whether the settlement conforms to applicable law. 4, whether the settlement will result in just and reasonable rates. And 5, whether the results of the settlement are in the public interest. Jumping ahead, with one minor exception, this order finds the terms of the settlement are supported by substantial competent evidence in the record as a whole. The commission agrees with ChargePoint's recommendation to modify the settlement to allow the residential rebate to be applied to installation of either a 240 volt outlet or a hardwired EV charger. Otherwise, the settlement is modified as approved for meeting the 5 factors. Turning to the expansion of Evergy's clean charge network. Evergy is asking the commission to determine that its proposed CCN expansion is decisionally prudent, which would give Evergy more certainty that it would be allowed to recover the cost of this investment in future rate cases. The commission finds it premature and unnecessary to predetermine decisional prudence of the expansion of the CCN. The commission primarily bases this finding on evidence that the need for utility investment in public EV charging infrastructure is very fluid at this time and unknown at this time. Among those uncertainties are the federal infrastructure investments in EV charging infrastructure and the competitive charging market in Kansas that's really in its infancy. So the order does explain that the commission believes there may be a role for Evergy to fill gaps left by the competitive charging marketplace in the federal infrastructure legislation. And in advance of Evergy's next rate case, this order offers some guidance of the commission's views of potential CCN expansion. In determining prudence, the commission would view the following factors as favoring cost recovery, but makes clear that no factor or set of factors would be deemed to conclusively demonstrate or rule out the prudence of any specific investment. The factors the commission would use in determining factors include, did Evergy give the competitive charging market and federal infrastructure funds a meaningful opportunity to serve an identified need before building the infrastructure? Was Evergy's infrastructure installed in an underserved area as defined by Evergy staff and CURB? Did Evergy explore and utilize to the extent feasible other funding opportunities, including federal infrastructure expansion funds as an alternative to traditional investment and rate-based treatment? And is Evergy's investment level for expanding the clean charge network at or below the budget described in its application? So with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Brian. At this time, I'll turn to my fellow commissioners if you have any questions for Mr. Fedotin, and I will begin with Commissioner Keen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would commend you, Brian. I think that was an excellent overview of the essence of the order and what it's about. As I see this order, there are basically 2 major issues that are addressed in the order. One is the non-unanimous settlement agreement. I think you gave a pretty good overview of that. The other has to do with the proposed expansion by Evergy of its clean charge network. And at this time, what I would like to do is to focus on that part of the order that addresses that proposed expansion of Evergy's clean charge network, put a little finer point, if I could, and a little different perspective, if I could, on what the order says and what I believe is appropriate commission policy as enunciated within the order. In this docket, Evergy has requested pre-approval to expand the clean charge network and seek recovery of those investments from ratepayers in future rate cases. The commission by this order is denying this request for pre-approval. In essence, Evergy is asking the commission to determine that its proposed clean charge network expansion be pre-approved, and so that in essence, it would give Evergy the opportunity to recover the cost of this investment from ratepayers in future rate cases. The KCC staff, CURB, and the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers all have opposed Evergy's request. Based upon a review of the record and as contained within the order, the commission in this matter is finding that it's premature and unnecessary to pre-approve expansion of the clean charge network at this time. And as Mr. Fedotin alluded to, the commission primarily is basing this finding on evidence that the need for utility investment in public EV charging infrastructure is, as he said, extremely fluid and unknown at this point. As evidenced in the order, chief among these uncertainties are an imminent and large federal investment in EV charging infrastructure, and as the order says, and I think quite appropriately, a nascent competitive charging market in Kansas. Given these factors as captured in the order, the commission has concluded that it would be inappropriate to conclusively pre-approve Evergy's proposed clean charge network infrastructure expansion at ratepayer expense. This aspect of our order, to me, is intended to provide the basis for a more competitive marketplace for EV charging infrastructure. I think it can be said as a general rule that competition among providers usually leads to better service at lower or competitive prices, and at more choice, it provides more choice as well for consumers and ratepayers. As Mr. Fedotin alluded to, in this order, the commission does not find that expansion of the clean charge network is per se imprudent, or that there is no role for Evergy to play in providing CV charging infrastructure services. In fact, as Mr. Fedotin alluded to, the commission does believe that there may be a role for Evergy in filling the gaps left by the competitive charging marketplace as it evolves, and as it evolves also under the federal infrastructure legislation. A lot of things here yet to play out. So depending upon the response of the unregulated providers of charging services, the gap filling role by Evergy may become necessary to support growth in the demand and ensure EV customers in Evergy service territories that they receive sufficient service. In all, I think this order really captures the essence of what is required to lay the foundation for a competitive EV market structure going forward. For that reason, and for the reasons that I support as well, the non-unanimous settlement agreement, I will be supporting this order. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Keen. Commissioner Duffy, any questions for Mr. Fedotin or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I have no questions, but I would like to add on to the comments of Commissioner Keen. The current charging network that is in place, that is Evergy's, is a shareholder sponsored network. The difference in this request is that the ratepayer would ultimately
Susan, I think we're losing your audio. You might try to turn your video off.
that.
Try again.
Okay, got that.
Okay, we can hear you. You may try turning your video off to see if that will give you a little more bandwidth.
Okay. Well, let's go on real quick. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so said they were not willing to consider a 50 split between ratepayers and shareholders, but as the year, and this was halfway through the year, with the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and over $40 million coming to the state of Kansas for charging investment, it did not appear to be a good move at this time to make any sort of predetermination. And again, that's not to say that later on they can't come back after things have settled a bit, and if they do see a role from themselves. I would like to say, as it relates to EV charging, 45 states have already passed some sort of legislation, or the PUC has acted. Kansas, South Dakota, North Dakota, Kentucky, and West Virginia had nothing on the books. So with this in place, it does allow residents to not only take advantage of the federal programs that will be coming their way for continued EV purchases, but it will add a rebate if for the 240, or as we added for the hard charging. Again, with GM, Ford, and every other car manufacturer setting dates of 2035, while that seems when they would cease manufacturing of petroleum-based cars, I think it allows folks in the Evergy territory to consider the purchase of an EV vehicle as I'm sure prices will come down and availability will go up, to further realize a rebate and when they make that purchase. I would like to thank staff and all of those involved for the material that was provided. And I believe this is an order that will take us off the list of the small number that have not established a program for Evergy or for EV rebates. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Duffy. Maybe before I take a motion, I'll just add a few comments here. And I don't have much to add beyond what Brian has done with the description of the order. I've seen the proposed order and agree with it in full. I would just say, a couple things. One, I am excited about the settlement. I think there's some really good provisions to support the transportation electrification transition. Even though we are declining to, I suppose, endorse an expansion of Evergy's CCN right now. I think it's important to point out that we aren't saying that Evergy can't, that they have management discretion to make a decision of whether they think that's needed. I think the order does a good job of constructively pointing out the considerations that this commission or a future commission might look at in deciding whether those decisions were prudent. I hope Evergy appreciates that regulatory certainty of understanding how we might judge those investments. But even though we're declining to maybe predetermine or endorse that expansion, I do want to give Evergy a big thank you and recognize them for how proactive they've been on studying and supporting this potential transition to electric vehicles. If we do manage this right, there are big benefits to come to all customers, whether or not they own an electric vehicle. And I really think Evergy's leadership and their engagement on that will be critical to make that happen. And so I do encourage them to continue their good work to understand this issue and make sure it happens. As many of us have said, happens for customers rather than to customers. So want to continue to encourage that and thank Evergy for their work on it. With that, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the order before us in this docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The order is approved. Thank you, Mr. Fedotin, for your presentation. Thank you, commissioners. If there's nothing further to come before the commission today, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. Those in favor, please vote aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Take care.